Hello, everyone. In today's episode, we will dive into how organizations can harness the power of data, AI, and analytics to drive innovation. Our guest, Stuart, will share actionable strategies and real world examples, offering insights on how leaders and data professionals can unlock the full potential of their data and AI investments. I'm super excited. I have known Stuart since a very long time and I'm very excited about this podcast. Quick introduction about me. I am Vivek Gupta, VP of Analytics at Factspan. And as I said, I'm thrilled to have Stuart on today's podcast. Quick introduction about Stuart. With a background in social psychology and data analytics, Stuart has applied his expertise in trading, strategy, and business intelligence across roles at McKinsey, American Express, and AIG. Known for his strong leadership and collaboration, Stuart specializes in driving revenue growth, operational efficiency, and innovation across global Fortune 100 companies. Stuart, heartiest welcome. Let us start with a fundamental question. How do you drive data innovation within an organization, and how has that impacted your role over time?
Well, thank you sincerely, Vivek, for having me on the podcast and for that really wonderful introduction. And I will get to your question in a moment. But first, I want to ask, why do so many promising data initiatives fall short or fail altogether? And I think one answer that I'm going to focus on today is that companies don't always engage employees, particularly their best and their brightest, in the data transformation process from the start. Now, back to your question about my role. I've started with targeted internal projects that drive substantial improvements and, importantly, build credibility among critical team members and demonstrate how data science can deliver value to them. Then I shift outward and I show how analytics can enhance the client experience, but importantly, in line with the company's brand and strategy and its goals. So briefly, the best way to enhance through data science in the future is to combine good tech with the people who helped your company succeed up until now.
That's awesome, Stuart. And what you said is in line to what we have observed across organizations and some of our clients, particularly those who have been successful in data innovation. I especially agree with your point about focusing on internal projects first, as it is a strategic way to build internal champions. These champions then play a crucial role in helping navigate the internal ecosystem, which absolutely makes sense. Moving on to my next question, Stuart, I and our audience would be very interested if you could share a few examples of how you have managed the needs of both internal and external users, ensuring ongoing alignment of internal efforts to effectively address challenges.
Sure. Happily share a couple of stories. So first, I'm going to talk about a claim severity predictive model. Now, the business wanted a better sense of how serious and expensive each claim might become, so it could assign that claim to the most appropriate adjusters right away. Now, before our intervention, 10 to 15% of claims were reassigned over time. What that meant was hundreds of claims each month were handed off to new adjusters, resulting in disruption, redundant effort, and claimant dissatisfaction. So finding a solution was written into the goals of senior leaders. Our internal clients, in other words, were very motivated. Plus, if we were successful, claimants would benefit by getting better service. Now, When we started, it was tempting to ask analysts just to dive into the data. But we approached it differently. We kicked off the project by bringing modelers and data managers together in the same room with hand-picked veteran claim adjusters. And we spent hours asking those adjusters to share stories of claims that started out simple and became complex. We listened to them and demonstrated that we value their experience and judgment. And this formed the basis of a relationship based on mutual respect and appreciation. It also gave our modelers 120 hypotheses that they turned into 5,000 factors to be tested in our models. So it gave us a great head start and improved the model's eventual explainability. The final product was a suite of machine learning regression models that delivered very precise predictions of severity from the very first notice of loss. Too precise, as it turned out. The concern was if our model told an adjuster the expected value of a claim, she might manage the claim toward that value, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. We didn't want our model to constrain adjusters in this way. So we didn't end up sharing the specific predictive value. Instead, we assigned each claim to one of 5 categories of potential severity. We ran this new process, this new rating scheme, for about 2 months in parallel with the current assignment scheme, and then gave the managers the ability to assign claims from the beginning based primarily on the new severity ratings. Over time, claim reassignment rate fell substantially, so did claim costs. And we noticed litigation actually came down somewhat, meaning claimants, were less inclined to sue us, primarily because they felt they were getting better service. Now, second story I'll tell is about moving toward the external now, but this time we're talking about our clients, our insurance clients. So underwriters began to ask how predictive analytics could help sell insurance. They faced a familiar business challenge, a highly competitive market that was driving profits down. Underwriters looked for a way to add value to our core loss transfer offering. It had to be something clients wanted, that didn't require much capital, and would be hard for competitors to copy. We also knew we needed flexibility to customize that offering, since our clients and prospects were all large companies with unique challenges. They were used to service providers bringing tailored solutions. Analytics was promising, in part because we had plenty of raw data on the losses from our claims, as well as plenty of exposure data from the underwriting process. Still, it took years and dozens of iterations to develop a truly effective suite of tools. The signature deliverable became benchmarking. We developed a proprietary platform that automatically generates a suite of analyses of internal data plus some external sources. The system first creates a precise copy of a client's exposure footprint for both workers' compensation and auto liability, and then compares claims derived from that virtual copy to the client's actual claim experience. The exposure-driven approach enables us to tell clients how they perform relative to a mirror image on scales such as frequency, severity, litigation rate, duration, injury type, accident cause, many other features. But it's not just about the reports. We follow the same principles that helped our internal project succeed. Client engagement leaders don't bring reports to the first meeting. Instead, they begin by listening to clients and then come back with a report tailored to those clients' needs. And what's more, these analyses enable a much more efficient and richer dialogue between clients and internal risk consultants on loss prevention. So this is one more example of how the same set of solutions can support both internal and external clients. I could go on, but I'm going to stop for time.
Thank you, Stuart, and phenomenal examples. A couple of things that resonated with us. One that you quoted, bringing in veteran claim handlers in your first example, which essentially means that you are ensuring all the stakeholders are involved in the project. They have their buy-in, they have a skin in the game, which is the best recipe to make a project, AI project successful. Then I love the self fulfilling prophecy example that you quoted. Again, we see this very often across our projects. And then the third thing that you highlighted, the underwriting example, I have been involved in a similar project, and I have seen how a project like this impacts internal and external users both. So thank you, Stuart, for sharing these useful examples. Moving on, Stuart, and this is a question that is one of my favorite, and I have been looking forward to ask you. Why do some organizations struggle to fully realize the value of their investment in data science and AI, even when the technology is promising?
Right. Well, that's a great question, right? And there are many different answers, but I'm going to focus in on the people side of things. So just to be clear here, companies may invest millions in advancing their analytical platforms, and then they wonder why even well-intentioned employees don't readily adopt them. So I just want to, consider possible reasons for what I call organ rejection of even the best designed analytical solutions. So sometimes employees are told that the benefits of data innovation will be to boost speed and efficiency, but what they actually hear and internalize is, my job might go away. Now, influencers, particularly those with tenure, may not feel obliged to learn a new platform or tool later in their careers. Also, some may not trust the new tools will function reliably now or in the future, especially if the design team will be reassigned after the launch. Such people might be unwilling to put their personal credibility at risk promoting these new solutions to their clients. And those who are meant to use the new solutions may not pay attention to pre-launch training because they're too busy with other things or because they're not sure why, and all these things tend to doom to failure. And last, incentives aligned to the old way of doing business may not be updated to reflect the new capabilities. So these are all symptoms of a misalignment of incentives. And in some cases, employees, managers, company leaders may not agree, and frankly, may not even trust each other. Right? In such an environment, it may be tempting to pit the old against the new, right? Think about Deep Blue versus Garry Kasparov. But inside an organization, that kind of conflict breeds winners, losers, resentment, and dysfunction. To my mind, alignment is critical at a macro level and at the individual level too. In general, my goal is to transform an existing service or process and to do so without disruption. I view data innovation projects as an opportunity to create new kinds of collaboration and trust across functions. This formula can rebuild and reinforce a team that delights customers and beats competitors. So to begin, right, I get to know the status quo and those responsible for maintaining it. I have rarely met employees who like using outdated systems and processes. So first I listen and provide an audience, especially the veterans and influencers who kept the old process going. Listen is a way to begin that dialogue. I may have a mandate from the CEO to create a new data-driven solution for a business unit, but still each business leader I meet with is going to ask herself privately, should I risk my personal credibility, my reputation, my career on something that is unfamiliar, untested, and may evaporate when the project finishes? These are natural misgivings. So my answer is to travel up what some psychologists may refer to as a trust trajectory. Whatever I'm proposing to do has to travel through a series of confidence-building hurdles. Does the proposal seem reasonable to that internal influencer? Is there a compelling business case? Do colleagues that person trusts also agree that it's worth pursuing? Will I eventually have to explain this to a skeptical external audience like regulators? Will this only impact internal stakeholders, or will it touch external clients as well? And if so, can I run a limited pilot in a way that I don't put my credibility at risk, but I see how it works? And eventually, if this is meant to be rolled out to the whole client portfolio, will it be in parallel with or a replacement for traditional business offerings? So as I travel up that curve, I win one conversation, one pilot, one meeting at a time, win the trust and the faith of the business. And this is where I find that business leaders are most hesitant to expose external clients, right? They are willing to take a chance on themselves and on their internal, but clients are the final gate. So I typically begin projects to demonstrate success among internal constituents before I earn the right to work directly with clients.
Sounds good, Stuart, and very insightful. I love the word that you used, organ rejection. I have made a note of this word and I'm going to use this often. And then when you started, Stuart, you clearly called out that you are focusing on the people side, which makes sense. In our experience, we have also seen organizations failing because of two more reasons than what you highlighted. One would be data. So what our experience says is that they don't have the basic data in place, they don't have the basic data pipelines in place, and then they are trying to do very fancy cutting edge innovation, which is essentially a recipe of failure. And then second, we have also observed is that a lot of organizations are trying to do cutting edge innovation, but then they don't have basic infrastructure in place to support this innovation. Awesome.
No, Vivek, you're absolutely right. We're just doing one podcast today, and I love all your other podcasts, and they tend to focus on those areas: the importance of data, the importance of the platform. I'm adding to that view, but in no way taking away from those other very important priorities.
Absolutely makes sense, Stuart. So moving on, Stuart, it would be helpful if you could throw some light on some key organizational pitfalls to avoid when undergoing a data and analytics transformation, particularly related to AI projects.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm gonna answer that in three ways, three different categories of pitfalls. First one is to fail to understand the company context. For example, what are the company's key strategic priorities? What about the company's brand and market reputation, as well as their position versus other competitors in the market? And then finally, failure to understand that current internal processes. So that's all under one group of what I'll call the company context. I know of one analytic exercise that didn't deliver the targeted impact. I wasn't involved in this, but I was aware of it. Some of my colleagues built a tremendous customer segmentation model for an insurance product. It incorporated a treasure trove of very relevant data, and the model predicted claims activity accurately. And it was delivered in a wonderful format, but it gathered dust on underwriters' desktops. And a follow-up inquiry revealed that underwriters had aggressive top-line targets only, but that internally the priority had not been to adjust bottom line. They were meant to grow the book, not so much to boost profitability. And as a result of that misalignment, the best model wasn't used. So the second broad category of I'll call it pitfalls to avoid organizationally is a failure to define success up front in a credible way. Now there's several different areas here, but one is the communication may be a little vague, or it may be overly ambitious, and it may not be articulated in a way that the people, particularly with regard to what I said before, may be really excited about. If the project management is not clear, if the goals are not smart, if the project is under-resourced, or if it's time-bound, even though we know that to be successful it's going to take years, but it's only budgeted for 1 year at a time, right? That can lead to challenges. And then finally, and this is well understood and well documented, sort of senior endorsement, right? If senior leaders give an announcement, this is great, and then don't follow up asking on a very regular basis, how's the project going? Is it successful? Then that will not succeed. So I generally recommend to clients that a senior leader, preferably a C-level, right, gives updates early and often to all employees who will be either expected to use the solution, to touch data on which the solution will depend, or to answer questions about its use. Right? Those are all important elements in terms of defining the success of this initiative. And the last one I'll talk about is failure to identify responsible owners, right, for success or failure, right? To establish accountability. There's an old adage: success has 1,000 success has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan. Right? We've got to enshrine accountability. So I recommend explicit ownership, publicly entrusted to either a small group or even just one person. Now, it doesn't mean the senior-most person. You got to think about the hierarchy, but also the function. Should that person who owns it be a business leader with P&L targets hanging on this, or an IT expert? I'm not saying there's a right answer, but if you don't define it clearly, then you're less likely to succeed. Do you want somebody who's a veteran, who's been with a company a long time, has a lot of credibility, or somebody who's new? Both could be right, but decide up front. And finally, do you want to include a range of people across various functions, or do you maybe just want to focus on one, let's say a high performer that people trust, right? So that's the third area I'll touch on, or I'll mention.
Very well said, Stuart, and I loved the line, success has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan, which is so true. Moving on, Stuart, I think it will be very helpful for the audience if you could dive deeper into one of the areas. So out of the three areas that you have covered, if you could deep dive one of the areas.
Yeah. So I'll go a little deeper on my last item, which was about ownership. Thank you, Vivek. Right? And a client engages a company like Factspan, right? It's tempting to offload to you guys all the day-to-day management, right? Well, one of the senior leaders may be actively involved. If the responsibility of the success of the project is given effectively to a company like Factspan, it's harder to get that successful outcome. It really needs to be the company itself. Your client is going to own the solution going forward. So it should be very clear who has that responsibility and why. Now, that said, right, an expert vendor like Factspan can provide help in many ways, right? You offer specialized expertise and knowledge that would help avoid time-consuming and difficult internal processes as people try to get up to speed. Right? You can accelerate project execution through relevant experience, through your focused expertise and your streamlined processes. And you can deliver valuable insights on the best practices and lessons learned from a diverse set of clients. Also from industry trends, technology stacks, and past success. There are, however, certain things for which Factspan or an expert vendor should not be responsible. You shouldn't be responsible for aligning with the company goals and vision, for establishing the priority of this project, for securing funding, and for motivating employees to participate in trials and training, and for holding company stakeholders accountable for proactive engagement and for meeting deadlines, right? Plus, if the company has the resources, that company should consider keeping intellectual property in-house. It can be tempting to offload the entire data solution to an external vendor, but if your company has new analytical capabilities that will differentiate you from competitors, you really should try to ensure that your company's data and analysis are developed and stored in your proprietary cloud.
Makes sense, Stuart, and I think that's and we absolutely hear you, and we exactly similar things are shared with with us by other stakeholders, and that's where as an organization we always focus on co-creating IP with our clients, and then we transition that IP to our clients for maintenance and enhancement. So that way the competitive edge, the IP is still with them, and then they leveraging our experience, they were able to develop that IP much faster if they would have done it by themselves. Awesome, Stuart. I have been enjoying this conversation, but then every good thing has to come to an end. So I will come to my last question now, Stuart. So if there is one takeaway you would want our listeners to remember as they embark on their own AI and data transformation journey, what would it be?
Very simply, don't think of AI and talent separately. It's a false dichotomy to ask replacement questions like, what can a machine do now that a person used to do? Companies will succeed in this new information age when they explore how to get the most out of the interaction of these two inputs, right? Data and people. Strategic questions like, now that AI can do this, what should I ask my talent to do differently to deliver a product or service that my customers want even more than what we offer today? And leaders should ask questions like these of fintech, of insurtech, and of their own people, particularly high performers and those with tenure, right? When asked, such people will probably tell you about time-consuming tasks that could be automated and valuable activities they'd rather do, like pursuing sales leads, like building partnerships, like taking care of customers, right? This dialogue may provide a foundation for a collaborative productivity that might help the next data-driven initiative succeed.
Very well said, Stuart. Phenomenal. As I said, Stuart, that we are almost at the end of the conversation. I really enjoyed it. You have shared many actionable insights, which I'm sure our audience will love. So Stuart, thank you for taking out time, and thank you, audience, for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and took away valuable insights from Stuart's experience. If you find this discussion helpful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more expert insights, and we will catch you next time. Thank you.